One flat, dusty plain, 3 battles, hundreds of years apart. Each time, the fate of an entire subcontinent was decided in a single bloody day. Empires rose from nothing, empires fell without warning, and each time, the world was never the same again. This is Panipat. Today, Panipat is a quiet town in the northern Indian state of Haryana, roughly 90 kilometers north of Delhi. There is no roaring river here, no towering mountain fortress, no natural barrier of any kind, just flat, open land stretching in every direction, and yet, 3 times in history, the greatest armies of their age gathered on this very ground and fought wars that changed the shape of an entire civilization. The First Battle of Panipat in 1526 gave birth to one of the most powerful empires the world has ever seen. The Second Battle in 1556 saved that empire from certain destruction, and the Third Battle in 1761, the bloodiest of them all, broke the last great Hindu power and opened the door to 200 years of foreign rule over the subcontinent. If history had gone differently even once on this field, modern South Asia, India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, would look completely unrecognizable today. If you want to understand how empires are truly born and destroyed, not in royal courts, not in parliament halls, but in a single violent afternoon on a flat piece of ground, stay until the end, because the third battle alone will leave you stunned. Subscribe now and let history begin. Before the battles themselves, there is one question worth asking. Why Panipat? Why did history keep choosing the same piece of ground? The answer lies in geography. Every major invader who ever entered the Indian subcontinent came from the northwest, through the mountain passes of Afghanistan, down through the Punjab plains, and toward the prize of Delhi. Panipat sits directly on that path. It is the last wide-open ground before Delhi, wide enough to maneuver massive armies, flat enough for cavalry to charge in any direction. There is simply no better place to fight, or to defend, the throne of Hindustan. Control Panipat, and you control the gateway to Delhi. Control Delhi, and you control the wealthiest, most powerful throne in all of Asia. 3 different empires understood this. 3 different armies bet everything on this ground, and 3 times history gave its answer here. By the early 16th century, the Delhi Sultanate was crumbling. Ibrahim Lodi, its last sultan, sat on the throne of Delhi with an army of nearly 100,000 soldiers and over 1,000 war elephants. He was powerful on paper, but Ibrahim was deeply unpopular among his own nobles. Several of them had already betrayed him. Some had written letters to a prince living in Kabul, a prince named Zahiruddin Muhammad Babur, inviting him into India. Babur was 38 years old and had spent most of his life losing things. He had lost his ancestral home of Fergana to Uzbek invaders. He had failed to hold Samarkand despite capturing it twice. He had been forced to settle for Kabul, a small kingdom at the edge of the known world. He was a descendant of both Timur and Genghis Khan, which meant he came from a line of conquerors, but so far he had very little to show for it. He crossed into India in early 1526 with approximately 12,000 soldiers. Against Ibrahim Lodi's 100,000, this looked like suicide. But Babur had 2 critical advantages. First, he had field artillery, cannons, which almost no army in Hindustan had ever encountered in battle before. Second, he had a tactical formation called the Tulugma, a strategy of fixing the enemy at the center, while cavalry wings wrapped around both flanks simultaneously, trapping the opponent in a pincer. On the morning of April 21st, 1526, the 2 armies faced each other on the plains of Panipat. Ibrahim Lodi advanced with his massive force. As his war elephants and infantry pushed forward, Babur's cannons opened fire. The elephants had never heard cannon fire. They panicked immediately. They turned and stampeded, directly back into their own army, crushing soldiers by the hundreds. Lodi's formations collapsed into chaos. At that exact moment, Babur's cavalry wings closed around both flanks. The Lodi army was surrounded, compressed, and destroyed. Ibrahim Lodi himself charged into the battle and was killed. His body was found among thousands of corpses on the field. The battle lasted only a few hours. The Delhi Sultanate, which had ruled for over 300 years, was gone before afternoon. Babur marched into Delhi and declared himself Emperor of Hindustan. The Mughal Empire was born on that Tuesday morning in April 1526. From Babur's victory came Humayun, then Akbar the Great, then Shah Jahan, who built the Taj Mahal, and Aurangzeb, who stretched Mughal rule to its greatest extent. a dynasty that would shape Indian art, architecture, language, cuisine, and culture for the next 300 years, all of it tracing back to this one morning, this one field, this one man with 12,000 soldiers and a few cannons that had never been heard in India before. But 30 years later, the empire Babur built was nearly erased from the earth, and Panipat would be called upon once again to decide everything. After Babur died in 1530, the Mughal Empire almost immediately began to collapse. His son Humayun proved to be a far weaker ruler. In 1540, an Afghan general named Sher Shah Suri defeated Humayun and took the throne of Delhi away from him entirely. Humayun spent 15 years in exile, wandering through Persia and the deserts of Sindh, kept alive largely through the hospitality of the Safavid Persian court. He finally recaptured Delhi in 1555. 6 months later, he died, falling down a staircase in his own library. He heard the call to prayer, stood up too quickly, slipped on his robe, and struck his head on the stone steps. One of history's most powerful thrones passed to his 13-year-old son, Akbar. While the child emperor was still finding his footing, a man named Hemu Vikramaditya was marching toward Delhi with a battle-hardened army. Hemu was not a prince. He was the son of a merchant from the town of Rewari. He had risen through sheer ability, first as a market superintendent, then as a general, then as the prime minister of Adil Shah Suri. He had personally fought and won 22 consecutive battles across northern India. In October 1556, he defeated the Mughal forces holding Delhi and occupied the city, declaring himself Samrat Hemu Vikramaditya, Emperor of India. He was sitting on a war elephant named Hawaii on the morning of November 5th, 1556, commanding his forces at Panipat from above. His army outnumbered the Mughals. His artillery was positioned well. His soldiers were veterans. The Mughal general Bairam Khan, acting as regent for the young Akbar, held a much smaller and less confident force. Most of the Mughal commanders were prepared to retreat. Then came the arrow. A stray arrow, fired by an unknown soldier, struck Hemu in the eye. He collapsed on his elephant. The howdah, the seat on top, hid his fallen body from his own army. His soldiers, seeing the elephant moving leaderless through the chaos, did not know what had happened. Rumors spread that Hemu was dead. The Hemu forces, who had been on the edge of victory, broke apart in confusion. Hemu was captured alive on the battlefield and brought before young Akbar. Bairam Khan ordered Akbar to execute him personally, the first act of a Mughal emperor. Historical accounts record that Akbar struck first with his sword. Hemu was killed. The Mughal Empire was saved. Akbar went on to reign for nearly 50 years, becoming the greatest emperor in Mughal history, perhaps the greatest ruler the subcontinent ever produced. He built a system of administration that governed hundreds of millions of people. He introduced religious tolerance across a diverse empire. He was the architect of an entire civilization. All of it rested on one stray arrow on a November morning at Panipat. The Mughal Empire would stand for another 200 years, but by the mid-17th century it was hollow. Its later emperors were weak and dependent on their generals. And from the south a new power had risen, one that almost nobody outside India remembers today, but which came closer than anyone else to ruling all of Hindustan. The Maratha Confederacy had its roots in the mountains of the Deccan Plateau. Under the great warrior king Chhatrapati Shivaji in the 17th century, the Marathas had built a powerful Hindu kingdom and successfully resisted Mughal expansion into the south. After Shivaji, the Maratha leadership passed to the Peshwas, a line of Brahmin ministers from Pune who became the real power behind the Maratha throne. By the 1750s, the Marathas controlled vast stretches of central, western, and northern India. They had sacked Delhi twice. The Mughal emperor in Delhi was effectively their puppet. The Marathas were not just a regional power, they were the dominant force across the subcontinent, and many believed it was only a matter of time before a unified Maratha empire replaced the collapsing Mughals entirely. Then came Ahmad Shah Durrani. He was the founder of modern Afghanistan and one of the most formidable military commanders of the 18th century. He had already raided northern India multiple times, looting Delhi in 1757 and carrying away priceless treasures, including the famous Peacock Throne. When he received word that the Marathas were consolidating control of northern India and threatening his own interest in the Punjab, he returned from Afghanistan with his full force. The Durrani Afghan cavalry, reinforced by the Rohilla Afghans and the Nawab of Awada.
The Maratha army marching north was led by Sadashivrao Bau, the cousin of the Peshwa, and Vishwas Rao, the Peshwa's eldest son. They brought with them an army of approximately 45,000 cavalry and infantry, reinforced by tens of thousands of camp followers. It was the largest Maratha force ever assembled in one place. The two armies met outside Panipat and entered a siege that lasted nearly 2 months. Ahmad Shah cut the Maratha supply lines, and by January 1761, the Maratha soldiers were hungry and exhausted. Their cavalry horses were weakening, their ammunition reserves were falling. On January 14th, the Hindu festival of Makar Sankranti, Sadashivrao Bau made the decision to break out and force a direct engagement. The battle began in the early morning. Initial Maratha attacks pushed the Durrani center back. For several hours, it appeared the Marathas might actually win, but Ahmad Shah committed his reserve cavalry at precisely the right moment, stabilizing his center and launching a devastating counterattack. Then, Vishwas Rao, the young Maratha heir, was shot dead on the battlefield. The news spread through Maratha ranks like wildfire. Sadashivrao Bau rode directly into the Durrani lines to die fighting, and was killed. The Maratha command structure collapsed completely. What followed was not just a military defeat, it was a massacre. Tens of thousands of Maratha soldiers were killed on the battlefield. Tens of thousands more, many of them pilgrims and civilians who had accompanied the army, were killed or enslaved in the hours and days that followed. A full generation of Maratha nobility perished at Panipat on a single January day. The Maratha Confederacy never fully recovered. The Peshwas lost the eldest heir and their greatest general in a single afternoon. The dream of a unified Hindu empire over all of Hindustan died on the plains of Panipat on January 14, 1761. The power vacuum left behind was enormous, and into that vacuum over the following decades stepped the British East India Company, expanding from Bengal with systematic military force, absorbing province after province, until by 1858 it had become the British Raj, ruling over the entire subcontinent. Historians have argued for centuries about whether the British rise was inevitable. What most of them agree on is this: the Third Battle of Panipat removed the one force powerful enough to stop them. 3 battles, 3 centuries, 3 completely different sets of armies fighting for 3 different reasons. And yet, the same question underneath each one: who rules the most powerful throne in Asia? In 1526, Babur's cannons answered it. In 1556, a single arrow answered it. In 1761, Ahmad Shah's reserve cavalry answered it. Each answer changed the subcontinent forever, the Mughal Empire that defined Indian civilization for 3 centuries, the great reign of Akbar that might never have happened. The colonial era that reshaped South Asia for 200 years. All of it flowed directly from decisions made on this flat, unremarkable piece of ground in what is today the Indian state of Haryana. Panipat did not build forts. It did not write treaties. It did not debate philosophy. It simply asked, in the most violent, definitive way possible, who deserves to rule? And every time it gave an answer the entire world had to live with. 3 battles, 3 empires decided, one piece of ground that history kept choosing again and again. If this story gave you chills, share it with someone who thinks history is boring. Drop a comment below and tell us, which battle surprised you the most? The cannon fire of 1526? The arrow of 1556? Or the catastrophic defeat of 1761 that opened the door to British India? And if you want more hidden stories like this one, stories that changed the world but never made it into your school textbooks, subscribe right now. History is not in the past. It is alive in everything around us, and it is waiting for you.